Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're joining me today because we are diving into a topic that literally catches so many people completely off guard. We're going to tear into the real, hard numbers behind buying property in Turkey. If you've been browsing listings online and calculating your budget based purely on those asking prices, you really need to pause and pay close attention, because in this market, what you see is almost never what you actually pay. Okay, let's get right into it.
So, here's the million-dollar question, or, well, the million lira question. You hand over the cash for the house. Are you done paying? Absolutely not. Not even close. You've really got to start thinking of that sticker price on the property listing as just the tip of a massive financial iceberg. Lurking just beneath the surface is this whole ecosystem of taxes, fees, and administrative costs that can completely sink your budget if you aren't prepared for them.
All right, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The unseen part of the iceberg. 2. The big 3 expenses. 3. Bank and processing fees. 4. An example scenario of the true cost. And 5. Some critical warnings and tips.
Okay, starting with part 1, the unseen part of the iceberg. Now, looking at this slide might induce a mini panic attack. And hey, that is totally valid. We are looking at 9 distinct fee types here. Everything from title deed fees and revolving funds to VAT, notary costs, and appraisals. Some are paid by the buyer, some by the seller, and some are just split down the middle. If hearing about all these extra costs makes your head spin, don't stress. This exact complexity is why we're breaking it down today. We're going to organize this chaotic list into a super clear, manageable journey for you. Moving right along to part 2, the big 3 expenses.
First up, we've got the heavy hitter, the title deed transfer fee, or tapu devir harji. This is basically the biggest estate tax you're going to face, calculated at a flat 4% of the declared sales price of the property. Now, in practice, this is a strict 50-50 split. The buyer pays 2% and the seller pays 2%. So your direct responsibility as the buyer is that 2% of the declared value. Keep that number in your head, because on a high-value home, 2% is a very serious chunk of change.
Now, you absolutely need to pay attention to this next one. We're talking VAT, or KDV, on brand new builds. If you are buying straight from a developer, check out this massive cliff. If the property is under 150 square meters, the VAT is just 1%. But the second you cross that 150 square meter mark, boom, it skyrockets to a whopping 20%. That is a staggering financial cliff. A home that's 149 square meters versus 151 square meters comes with a completely different financial reality.
But hey, here is a massive sigh of relief for a lot of you. If you are purchasing a second-hand property, meaning it's already been sold once before by the developer, you are 100% exempt from this VAT cliff. Literally zero VAT on second-hand home sales. Honestly, this single fact alone pushes so many buyers straight into the second-hand market.
All right, the third big one is the realtor commission. The legal maximum limit for this is 4% of the total sales price plus VAT. And just like the deed fee, it's usually split right down the middle. 2% from you plus the VAT on that, and 2% from the seller. But listen to me on this one because it's crucial. This rate is freely negotiable. That 4% is the ceiling, not a floor. Especially on huge transactions, savvy buyers can and absolutely should haggle that down to 1 or 2%. It's a real game changer.
Which brings us to part 3, bank and processing fees. Let's say you're taking out a mortgage. You're going to walk right into this specific sequence of secondary fees. Step 1, the mandatory appraisal fee, which will run you anywhere from 9,000 to 20,000 lira right now. Step 2, the bank slaps on a loan allocation fee of 0.5% of your total loan. Step 3, down at the title deed office, there's a fixed revolving fund fee. In big cities like Istanbul, that's roughly 6,700 lira. And finally, if you're setting up a preliminary sales contract, the notary takes another 0.845%. It's just a steady stream of administrative costs chipping away at your budget.
I want to pause here for just a second to highlight this specific tax, the real estate capital gains tax. Now, you might be thinking, wait, this is a tax on the seller. Why on earth do I care? Well, you care because knowing about this 5-year rule gives you massive leverage. If the seller bought that house less than 5 years ago, they are on the hook for a 15 to 40% tax on their profit. If you know they are staring down the barrel of that tax bill, it explains their pricing strategy and gives you incredible bargaining power when you're negotiating the final price.
Let's put this all together in part 4, an example scenario of the true cost. Okay, let's look at a 120 square meter second-hand apartment in Istanbul. The asking price? 5 million lira.
If you buy this in cash using a realtor, brace yourself. Your sticker shock is a massive 439,950 lira. That is the out-of-pocket cash you have to cough up on top of the 5 million lira asking price. Crazy, right? So where the heck does nearly 500,000 lira actually go? Well, let's break it down. For a 5 million lira home, your 2% buyer's share of the realtor commission, plus the VAT on that, eats up 240,000 lira right off the bat. Then your 2% share of the title deed fee takes exactly 200,000 lira. The others category, which is your notary fee, the revolving fund, and the mandatory earthquake insurance, makes up the last 48,950 lira. As you can see, the realtor and the government are taking the lion's share of that extra budget.
Which means the absolute most crucial takeaway here is this final number. Your true purchase cost is not 5 million. It is 5,439,950 lira. This right here proves exactly why you have to budget way past the advertised price. If you only have exactly 5 million lira sitting in your bank account, guess what? You can't afford a 5 million lira house. You need an extra 8 to 9% in pure liquidity just to close the deal without a financial disaster.
And finally, part 5. Critical warnings and tips.
Let's run through some really punchy, actionable red flags to watch out for. Number 1, whatever you do, never underdeclare the price of the home just to save on that 4% deed fee. The state monitors this, and the penalties are brutal. Number 2, watch out for that 150 square meter VAT cliff on new builds. 3, definitely use the seller's 5-year capital gains window as negotiation leverage. 4, remember those realtor commissions are legally capped, but they are highly negotiable. And 5, you absolutely must have your mandatory DASK earthquake insurance sorted out, or you legally cannot transfer that title deed. No exceptions.
And I've got one last super vital tip, specifically if you're taking out a mortgage. The bank does not care about the asking price. They rely entirely on their own independent appraisal report to figure out your maximum loan limit. So if you agree to buy a place for 5 million, but the bank's expert says it's only worth 4 million, the bank is only giving you a loan based on that 4 million valuation. You've got to be completely prepared to cover that massive difference in cash.
Which brings us to our final thought for the day. Now that you're armed with all this data, you understand the hidden fees, the tax cliffs, the negotiation levers, and those sneaky appraisal gaps. Are you really ready to pay the true cost of your dream home? Buying property in Turkey is an incredible move, but as we've seen today, getting it right means looking way beyond the listing price. I really hope this explainer left you feeling empowered, a little more cautious, and totally ready to tackle the market like a pro. Thanks so much for hanging out and learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.